Hi, I'm Jill Fitzhenry, and I am going to show you a quick, easy little design today, and it's a flower of hope. So to start with, I've got a watercolor paper here, and I'm just going to draw with a pencil the word hope. Now, I'm not going to make it perfect. I think it looks really nice for everybody to put their own little spin on the letters. So I'm just gonna make all the letters and then I'll come back and connect them. Okay, so now I'm going to add a loop up at the top of the H. I'll connect the O and the P and the E. I'm going to go ahead and connect the loop. Then up in the middle of my paper is where I'm going to add a flower after. So I'm going to put a little circle and I'm going to have a line for the stem that comes in and connects into where I left off with the E. Okay, and then I'll add a couple little stems for some leaves afterwards. Okay, let's start first with the flower. Okay, the flower is going to be like a color wheel or a rainbow. So I'm going to start by wetting the paper. Now I'm going to use the DecoArt Fluid Media acrylic. However, you could use any acrylic, and to start with, you just want to line your colors up like a color wheel. So start with your primaries. You've got your red, your blue, and your yellow. Okay, and then when you mix those, you get your secondary colors, which will be the green, the orange, and the purple. Okay, so on my palette here, I set them up that way as well. So I've got yellow, blue, red, and then in between, red and yellow make orange, yellow and blue make green, green and red make purple, and then there's also a really pretty magenta color, which is right in between the purple and red. That's already pre-mixed, so I'm going to use a little of that as well. Now, you could tape your paper down so that it doesn't curl on you while you're working. I'm just going to wet this. Okay, so I just used the black gold 1/2 inch angle, but you could use a flat. Then I'm going to start with the black gold number 4 round. I want to use all of my colors really wet. I'm going to turn this upside down to make it easier. Okay, so I want to start with the yellow first because I want it pointing towards the sunshine. So I'm going to thin my color down, lots of water. I want everything to be washes. And I'm just going to wiggle back and forth and pull it out skinnier. Okay, so I'm going to start right away with my primaries. So I've got the yellow, and kind of think about it like a little triangle when you're placing these. And here's some red. Clean the brush, and then I'll get the blue. Now this is not a standard or a true blue color. This is the phthalo blue. It just happens to be one of my favorites. So I'm cheating a little bit by not using a regular blue, but it still works. Okay, now the colors, when you mix them in between, you would get green between the blue and the yellow. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and mix some yellow and green together to get one more transition in between. So I get a third one. And rinse the brush. And the same with the blue and the green. I'm going to mix those and I'll end up getting a teal. Okay, then in between my blue and my red, I would have purple. Now the dioxazine purple is a very strong color. You don't need a whole lot, so make sure you really thin that down. Okay, then the purple and the blue mixed together. In between those two. And then the red and the purple is where I would get that magenta, but since it's already in a bottle, ready to go, I'm going to start with that. Okay, then in between the red and the yellow, they make orange. So get the orange in there, and then I'll mix the orange and the red and put that in between again. Maybe add just a little more orange onto that one. Don't be afraid to go back over a little bit if you need to, and you can let it dry and go back over it too. And then the yellow and the orange mixed together to finish in between. Okay, now I'm going to let that go ahead and dry a little bit. I might as well go ahead and put some. Now, if your center got too muddy, you could base coat it with some white paint and then come back, but I'm just putting some orange in the middle of the center for now. So while that's drying, I'm going to do my lettering. I'm going to use the number 2 round in the black gold, and I'm going to make the lettering green because it goes up into the stem. So I want to thin that with some water. And I'm going to do the sections of the letters separately. So I want some thick, some thin. I'm going to start at the top of the H and start on the very tip and then apply pressure, making it fatter, and then release pressure at the bottom. Okay, now I'm going to do all these sections and then come back and connect them. I'll start at the top of the H, the little hump there, squish down, release pressure, and thin. Okay, same with the O. Now, you could pick either side. I'm going to pick this side. Squish down, release pressure, and lift. Okay. For the P, I could do the stem coming down, but I think what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and connect that circle area. So I'm going to press down and lift. Okay, and then one more letter is the E. Up on the tip, press down and lift. Okay, now I'll go back and I'll connect everything, and this time I just want it to be thin. So I'm going to just get up on the very tip and not put any pressure down. I don't want it too thin. I want it to be able to stand out a little bit, so I'm not using a script or liner brush because I want a little bit of thickness. Just connect down here. And do it in sections. If you can't make that curve, go ahead and do it in sections. You don't have to make it all in one long stroke. Get all my letters connected. Just make sure that your paint is thin so it flows off the brush nicely. And the E. Okay, and then I'm going to go up into the stem. So the stem of the flower, get a little bit more fluid media on there. Okay, so I'm going to apply pressure and then release as I come down into the E. And I'll add the stem on each side. Okay, so now for the leaves, I'm just going to make them stylized, and they're not going to be totally connected even. So I'm just going to apply pressure and lift, apply pressure and lift. And just create some kind of stylized leaves connecting to that stem. Kind of a thin, thick, thin stroke. And it doesn't matter if they're pointy or rounded, just have fun, let it take on its own characteristics. And I just put as many on as I need to fill in the space, so there's no set number, no rules. There we go. Okay. Okay, rinse my brush. Okay, now, if your paper is still really wet, you do want to let it dry before you go to the next step. So I'm going to stop and blow dry it. Once your paper is dry, you can come back and you can sketch on some petals for a daisy. So let me show you. I'm just going to start with a pencil, and I'm going to start up at the top, and I'm just going to sketch in a little petal here, and I like each of them to be just slightly different. Let me zoom in so that you can see a little bit closer what I'm sketching. Okay, so I like to do top, bottom, side to side, and then I'll go and fill in between. So I've got one on top. I'm going to put one on the bottom. Okay, the ones on the side, I want to give a little bit of a curve. And don't make every tip perfect. Let them each be a little bit unique. Let this take on a life of its own. In between, I'm going to add another petal. And then I'll come back and I'll even add one more after that, but I'll just get the basics in here first. Okay, now I'm going to use some black in the fluid media, carbon black, and I'm going to use that to draw. Now you could use a permanent marker, but I love how fluid this is, and it comes off really nice off my brush. So I've got the black gold 10-aught script. I like the little bit longer length so that it'll hold more fluid paint. Okay, and I'm just going to start by painting in the edges of the flowers or the petals. Okay, and then I'm going to add another little one in between that'll be behind the ones that I drew in. Like I said, let each one be unique. Turn your piece as you need to. I'm going to turn it upside down so I can keep my finger out of the wet areas. Yeah, the media paint flows off the brush really nice. I still add water to it though. Thin it down. Okay, now this one might have had a little bit more space, so I actually see that back petal a little more, and that's okay. You just keep filling it in. And visually, you want them all to look like they're coming in attaching into the middle of the flower. Actually, it'd be like underneath, so it might be a little bit more of a curve, but this is just stylized, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Just let it be irregular. I think that adds to the charm. Fill in those in-between ones. And I'm not trying to go all the way out to the edges of where I have my color. I want to stay inside of those areas. Okay, then I'm just going to add some thin lines at the bottom of the petals. Little vein lines, still using the black. Make them all different lengths, some long, some short, some in between. All coming from the middle of the flower. And you can see the liner works really nice. It does hold quite a bit of fluid paint, so I can get quite a few strokes before I have to reload. Now, if you can't, that usually means you don't have enough water in your mixture, so stop and add a little bit more water to your paint. Just continue getting all the little strokes in here. Now, I think it'd be a great idea if everybody would just flood Facebook with all kinds of beautiful color wheel, rainbow type flowers, and give everybody a little bit of hope. I think everybody's gets a little stressed out from time to time, so let's bring a little bit of beauty back in. I'm going to add some little dots, just tap with the tip all the way around the center of my flower. Just very irregular. I don't want them perfect dots, I just want to tap. Also in the center, I'm going to make kind of like a little smile area and add some little black dots in there as well. Okay, rinse my brush. Okay, then what I want to do is I want to add some, I could just leave it like this, but I'm going to add just a little bit of some white on some of the tips. So I'm going to take out, let's see where I have space right there. I'm going to go back to my number 2 round and use that. Okay, so get some white, and I don't, there again, I don't want this to be a perfect blend. I'm just going to pull some little strokes from the tips to make them show up a little bit better. Maybe not do the back ones, just the ones that would be more forward. And you don't have to do them all. Just get some little strokes so that the flower will stand out just a little bit from that background that we made. Now this will soften a little bit. This white in this particular line fades a little bit as it dries, so it does soften, which I like for this type of technique. But if I were to get too much, I could even blot it a little bit with a towel or my finger. Okay, I'm also going to put a little bit in the center of my flower. Let's do some little dots. I'm going to just do some little dots. Just use the tip of the brush and just add some dots. So when you load it, dip the tip right in the middle of the paint And then don't put any pressure down, let it just kind of fall right off the brush. So right in the middle of that tip. And I'm trying to be careful because I know my black is still wet. Put a little bit on the bottom center there as well. It's up to you if you'd like to add a few little black lines into the leaves. Maybe just add a line that comes in along the side. There again, don't be trying to make it perfect. Don't worry if it's not on the actual edge of the leaf. I'm just going to pick one side and just accent, and down the center as well. Now I want to add a little bit more green coming up right into the flower, so I'm going to go right on top of my other color I had there so that it finishes connecting it. So there you go, quick little project that you can do just using watercolor paper and a few little brushes. And let's send this out to all of our friends and bring them all a little bit of hope. Have fun painting.